Okay. After a resurgence from Formula One's most successful team ever, we're back to our regularly scheduled programme after another 1-2 from the champions-elect. Hello and welcome to the Grid Talk podcast, where we'll be reviewing last weekend's Russian Grand Prix. Hosting today with me, George Howson. And joining me today are journalism student Louis Edwards.
Hello.
Multimedia journalist Ruby Price.
Hey.
And sports journalist Mikael Kataja.
That's fine. Hey.
So, if you are looking for the preview for the Russian Grand Prix and the review for the Singapore Grand Prix, unfortunately, there was none. We didn't record it in the end because I was pretty busy last week, as you can see. I was welcoming this little one into the world. So, I think if there is a proper excuse, that's probably the best one.
Yeah, that's fine, man. Congrats again.
Thank you. Right. So let's get on to the stuff that the people actually clicked onto this wants to go for. So if you haven't seen the results from the race, what the hell are you doing watching or listening to this? Do go off now, watch the race, listen to the race if you wish. But yeah, so Mercedes 1-2 in the end. Lewis Hamilton leading home Valtteri Bottas, but was far from a straightforward one, Ruby, for them.
No, for almost the entire race, almost the entire first half of the race, it didn't seem as though it was going to go Mercedes' way unless their tactical gamble, I guess you could call it, from qualifying paid off. But I guess we'll never know if it would have paid off or not.
It didn't seem like it would have paid off. They were still a bit behind the Ferraris, but Lewis Hamilton, credit to him, he stuck with the Ferraris, who were probably definitely the faster car actually this weekend. On harder tyres, it was a hell of a race for Hamilton, wasn't it, Louis?
Yeah, I mean, a bit of luck did definitely come into it, but to keep up with the Ferraris on the medium tyre is definitely impressive. And then, I remember over the radio said, right, we're going plus 15. It's like, wow, you're going really long into the race on those mediums. But great strategy by Mercedes, great drive by Lewis Hamilton. You're not going to expect anything less from what, let's face it, is now going to be a 6-time world champion.
Yeah, I mean, it was all but confirmed before, to be fair. But I have to admit, were you disappointed with Bottas this weekend, Mikael? Because Sochi is a track that he really does really well around normally, and it wasn't like he had the victory taken away from him by Mercedes. He was, for most of the, he finished about 4 seconds off Hamilton in the end, but he was miles behind during the first part of the race before the safety cars.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this was one of his weakest efforts in Russia for a few years at least. I mean, especially after coming to Mercedes. I think like the entire weekend for Valtteri was pretty weak. I mean, it did come. He did kind of bring it back by keeping Charles behind. I'm sure it wasn't an easy task, even if Leclerc had pretty worn out softs on. But I mean, yeah. I mean, we can crown Hamilton as a champion, and Bottas will, start focusing to next year probably. Maybe grab one win this year if it goes to.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't he? He had 2 wins early on, but he's not really looked like getting one since. Yeah, pretty poor race for him in the end in some ways, but he did get second place, obviously. So that's something. Making sure that Mercedes are now unbeaten in Russia over the last 106 years. We won every Russian Grand Prix, even before the First World War, which is something else, really, when you think about it. But yeah, Hamilton extending his lead at the top of the championship even more. But in some ways, it really shouldn't have been like that because Ferrari, again, the fastest car on the grid, but Mercedes just out-strategizing them. But yeah, Leclerc finished third in the end, but it should have been so much more, shouldn't it have been, Ruby?
Yeah, definitely. Ferrari's strategy and just pace just seemed to be allowing them to dominate this weekend. What really let them down was Vettel's V6 engine. Well, it was the MG UK, wasn't it, that just basically went kaput. Yeah. And then choosing to pit Charles twice in the race just wasn't really, track position at Sochi is key, and if you're going to go behind, you've got to be quick to have a chance. And those Mercedes were also just too quick for Ferrari at that point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ferrari had the quickest car this weekend. I think Hamilton did an absolutely fantastic job in qualifying to get second, and that put him within a shot of challenging the Ferraris, really. Because it was a Ferrari 1-2 after the first lap, after the first corner. But Louis, I mean, this is going to be a difficult one for you to answer, or anyone to answer, really. But what was going on with the team orders at Ferrari? Because I think all of us are really confused. Like, what was Vettel took the lead off Leclerc from the start, and then Leclerc was complaining on the radio. It's absolutely perplexing.
I think the strategy for Ferrari, watching like Ted's notebook after the race or something, I think the plan was that Vettel would draft Leclerc to get past Hamilton, and then he would then take the lead into turn one because he would have the slipstream. Therefore, it would secure Ferrari 1-2. But once Vettel got in the lead, he then had to give the position back to Leclerc. But Seb, being Seb, didn't. And I think it was a bit too early for the call for me. I think Lewis was still too close behind to really do sort of switch them safely without Lewis being right on the back of Sebastian. So I could see where Seb was coming from, but he got a great start, and I think, all fairness to Seb, I think he did deserve to keep that position, regardless of the Ferrari strategy.
Yeah, I think on merit he should have kept it. He took the lead fair and square. We've seen it loads in the past where I think Bottas won from third in 2017. Rosberg took the lead 2014 off the line. First place in Sochi is not that great of a place to start because the massive toe you get into turn two, first braking zone. But yeah, I think it really shows, like, Ferrari do have the fastest car right now, but it just doesn't seem like they're organised enough to convert. I mean, yeah, they have won the last 3 races before this, but these are the mistakes that in the next year they need to cut out to challenge for the championship, don't they, Mikael?
Yeah, that's true. But it's difficult to say. I mean, looking back, I think even starting third for Hamilton might have been better because, as you mentioned, like, it is the best starting spot for perhaps in Russia. But I mean, yeah, this kind of like micromanagement of this team strategy from Ferrari's part is weird. At the same time, like, I'm sure they went through like the horror images of having Vettel and Leclerc crash onto each other in turn 2. So, maybe just avoiding that by saying that let Seb go through if he's faster, and then we'll switch again might have been smart. At the same time, yeah, I don't know. I mean, even with just changing them over the pit stops as they did, like without the VSC, it might still have worked out. So I don't think it was that bad of an idea just to avoid having 2 DNFs in the first corner or the second.
Yeah, I guess in that sense, you got to make sure that your cars finish. To finish first you must finish, but they didn't finish first in the end.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they were unlucky with the VSC. It was badly timed for them, but at the same time, Ruby, can you explain why they tried to pick? I mean, I know why they wanted to pick Leclerc. They wanted fresher tyres from the faster tyres, but it put him behind Bottas on a track where it's extremely difficult to overtake.
The only reason I can think that they would have, why they did pit Leclerc was Leclerc had obviously pitted quite a number of laps beforehand, before the Mercedes had just done. Verstappen was on fresh tyres that were brand new as well, and all of a sudden he'd just been brought back into the picture in terms of where he was. At one point, I think he was 30 seconds off the lead, Verstappen. And yeah, it's a bit worrying why they decided to do it, but I can see why they chose to.
Yeah, sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them, but I guess it's a particular highlight for Ferrari when they do make a strategy call. They've got so much pressure from all the fans and everything. One thing that was without a doubt bad was Vettel. Obviously, he was doing really well in the race, but then had his NGUK failure, and it was a double whammy for Ferrari because that VSC ended up costing Leclerc the lead. A horrible few laps that for Ferrari, wasn't it, Louis?
Yeah, and just to quote Sebastian Vettel, bring back the fucking V12s.
Yeah, because Ferrari's V12 was famously reliable, wasn't it?
Was any V12s reliable?
No, it's true. None of them were.
It's yeah, it was a horrendous blow to Ferrari. It's just, and I think I think it was bound to. I've been waiting for Ferrari to screw up royally since Belgium, so it all had to come at once, didn't it? But I think it's just things that happen in Formula One. We've seen it happen to Mercedes in the past. It's just part and parcel of the sport and the way that the current formula is.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was really encouraging for Vettel. Like, a lot of people on Twitter have been saying that this weekend he was finally driving. I mean, he won in Singapore, obviously, but he was finally driving this weekend like the old Seb, the Red Bull Seb, the Seb at Ferrari in the first few years. Do you agree with that, Mikael?
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I mean, he did take the lead fair and square and did drive away from Charles in the beginning as well, making it more difficult to make the judgment call of having them change position. So it was definitely one of Seb's best showings, if not this year, and maybe even his entire almost Ferrari career, I think. Now that he finally has a car that can be expected to actually win every year, every race.
It's encouraging times for him in that sense. And with Japan coming up as well, a track that he always does well around. Never know, could be winning another chance for a win there. But yeah, moving further down the running order at the end. Now, Honda, they brought some new engine parts in ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix, their home race. So they've taken a lot of penalties this weekend for all their cars, Red Bulls and Toro Rossos. Despite that, though, Red Bull 4th and 5th, Max Verstappen 4th. Some crazy overtakes as well. I think he got Sergio Perez on turn 4, whatever it was, the really long left-hander. That was a hell of a move. Decent drive for the Dutchman in the end, wasn't it, Ruby?
Yeah, I think when everyone saw all the penalties for Red Bull, just across the entire spectrum of cars, everyone was expecting there to be just a lot of late braking, just overtakes and stuff, the kind of stuff that we saw all the time with Danny Rick. Yeah, it was impressive as well seeing Albon come through the field. I didn't really expect that to happen to the extent that it happened.
Albon really impressed me this weekend. And I'm watching the race. I honestly thought that if Gasly was still in that Red Bull, he would have finished that race 9th, 8th, something like that. But instead, he finished 5th. I thought it was a very, very good drive by him. Do you agree, Louis?
Yeah, he was definitely my driver of the day. We're finally seeing that sort of fight from that second Red Bull car that we've been missing all season. It's great. It's great to see that Albon is taking his chance because he's not guaranteed a contract there next year. He's taking his chance. He's really showing Helmut Marko and the Red Bull management what he can do in that car. And yeah, great drive.
Yeah, great by him. Helped a lot by this safety car, of course, but you got to take your luck as well. And there was a lot of times this year where Gasly finished behind Carlos Sainz in pretty equal circumstances, and to come back like that was great. But yeah, speaking of Carlos Sainz, best of the rest, 6th, another slightly quiet drive in a way, but just getting the job done, getting the points in for McLaren. He's in incredible form, isn't he, Mikael, this season?
Yeah, he's doing really well. And I mean, obviously the entire McLaren team is doing well, but I mean, I was very impressed by Sainz's start. I mean, he had an amazing start. I mean, he was driving side by side with Hamilton, at least to the first corner, with Hamilton just inside and keep his P3, and then keeping Bottas a few laps behind him. I mean, he's doing very well, and you can see that he's probably out driving the car. Nothing against Norris, obviously, but the fact that he keeps, fighting with the Red Bulls tells me that, if he only had a race-winning car, he would definitely be in like the top step or competitor for the top step.
Yeah, definitely. I remember a few years ago, I think it might have been before Bottas joined Mercedes. Martin Brundle wanted to see Carlos Sainz in the Mercedes. I think been a hell of a battle between him and Hamilton. I still think Hamilton would have the upper hand. I think he would have against almost every driver, but it'd be very interesting to see him in a top car. But he's doing a fantastic job for McLaren. Seventh place, and a bit of a surprise, really, in some ways. Sergio Perez in the Racing Point. After not scoring for ages, he's on a very good role at the moment, isn't he, Ruby?
Yeah, definitely. That new contract of his has certainly put a spring in his drive, at least, rather than step.
You say he's really motivated.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Mercedes engine as well will have helped Racing Point in this weekend. Well, Perez at least, maybe not Stroll.
Yeah, no, Lance Stroll didn't do too well, and he only just missed out on points, the Canadian 11th in the end. But yeah, Sergio Perez, he's got a knack round Sochi, hasn't he, Louis?
Yeah, he's put out some great performances. I mean, this Racing Point this season has been all over the place, but he's really making the most of it recently, and coming to a track that he's strong at is it's always going to be, it's going to get good results. So it was just another brilliant drive. It's definitely unexpected, like you said, but great nonetheless.
Yeah, very good for him. We gave a mention to Lando Norris earlier. It was a 6-8 for McLaren. Really good weekend for them. After it was looking a bit shaky in their battle with Renault, another really good, solid points haul for them. What was it? Did you hear Lando Norris's team radio after the race as well? It's fair to say he's not a fan of sushi. I'll say that. I'm not going to repeat exactly what he said. He's not looking too forward to Japan in that sense. But yeah, let's talk about. There's not really too much to say about Norris. Decent job. He fell back a little bit in the end, but still 8. K-Mag though, Kevin Magnussen, 9th in the Haas. There's a lot to talk about here about the Dane. Not least his penalty, which I think it's fair to say he didn't agree with, did he, Mikael?
Yeah, I mean, the penalty was I personally view it as a shame. I mean, he had been driving very well. I mean, obviously, he was one of the big winners alongside Mercedes with the VSC, being able to pit during that time and technically jumping almost the entire field. I mean, I think he was in 7th or 6th at one point. So definitely did well. I mean, the penalty, it's a shame because he could have just gone around the bollard the other way and then he would have been 8th. But for Haas, I mean, it's an interesting weekend, having Grosjean the better qualified, a Q3 appearance for Haas, and then DNF on the first lap, and then Magnussen still getting points. I mean, you have to say it's a good weekend, but it's definitely a strange season.
Yeah, very strange season for Haas. Just looking over the results here, it's quite remarkable in a way. The last time he scored points was Germany. Both cars scored points now. But that was absolutely an insane race. Even Williams scored that race. But if you take away Germany, they haven't scored any points apart from in Russia since Monaco. Nearly 10 races ago. It's been a horrific run of form for Haas. But they have got a few points. But it should have been more, shouldn't it, Ruby? I think that penalty for Magnussen. I mean, Steiner said it was stupid. Magnussen said it was bullshit. Where do you stand on it?
I didn't really see the incident in question. I think it's to do with the whole bollard situation. And I think we saw in the F2 race before, or it might be in F3, before the F1, what can happen when cars don't actually follow when you go off track procedure. There was a big crash that delayed the F2 race for quite a long time. So I do think that, if you do go off these, they have to be consistent with penalties. But at the same time, if you're coming back on and there's no one around, it's a contextual scenario, really.
Yeah. The stewards won't see it like that, though. I know what you mean. It should be contextual. It should be, if there is a car there, then get out of the way. If there isn't, come back on. It's fine. But I mean, I'm not 100% on it because the TV coverage from Channel 4 wasn't the best for this. I think it was when Perez overtook Magnussen and Magnussen went off. But it looked to me as though he rejoined on the left side of the bollard, which is correct. Louis, can you shed a bit more light on this? Do you actually know what he did wrong? Why did he get the penalty?
I don't know. I know there are two sort of individual bollards at Russia. So I think you have to go to the left of one and then sort of the right of the other. I don't
it's
know
like
whether he
one
did.
on entry and one on exit sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know whether he violated that, but I didn't see too much issue with it. I mean, it wasn't like unsafe. It wasn't like crazy driving from Magnussen. I think he definitely. I think he should have maybe got a reprimand, or they started handing out these sort of black and white flags now. Maybe
only for Ferraris though. Come on.
Maybe they can. I don't know. But we saw in France when Perez did the correct thing, he got a penalty. So
yeah, that was mad, wasn't it? It's like they set the course out, he followed the instruction, but oh no, he went too fast.
Yeah,
they're the ones who set the path. I saw you took the penalty turn too fast. It's just weird. I mean, some people have been calling for penalty corners like they have in, I think, MotoGP for Formula One, but that obviously wouldn't work based on this evidence. It's absolutely bizarre, and I think it's a shame as well. It cost Haas 2 points, and that could be vital for them because they're in 9th place in the constructors' standing. They need everything they can get at this stage. But yeah, anything more to add on the penalty, Mikael?
No, I mean, no, not really. I mean, yeah, as I said, it's a shame, but yeah, I completely forgot about the black and white flags. I'm really surprised and actually pissed off they didn't use that on Magnussen, because that would have been a perfect way to show that, hey, don't do it again, because it wasn't a dangerous situation. But yeah.
I think if there's anywhere that Haas would have scored as well for the rest of the season, it is Sochi, because they are struggling with tyre overheating. It's the smoothest circuit you'll find on the calendar, so good on them. They got some points. It's good to see. But that penalty, I just don't like that, to be honest. But yeah, final point scorer was Nico Hülkenberg of Renault, and just a dismal weekend for Renault, really, wasn't it, Ruby? Not much to write home about.
No, definitely not. I believe Hülkenberg if my memory serves me correct, Hülkenberg did get a black and white flag during this race.
Ooh, what was it for?
I think it might have been for the actual bollard infringement thing. I can't remember entirely, but
that's bad.
I might be wrong. I remember hearing that Hülkenberg was shown a black and white flag. But yeah, Renault just sort of had a shocker, starting with Daniel Ricciardo's just wrong place, wrong time incident.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I want to go over the first lap incident, actually. It involved 3 cars, Grosjean, Giovinazzi and Ricciardo. 2 of them ended up retiring from it. I mean, I've seen it a few times. I just think it's something that happens on the first lap. You got 3 cars going to space that can fit 2 at the most, and it's unfortunate. I don't think anybody got any penalties for that in the end, so it's fair enough. I did think what Grosjean said on the radio was interesting, though. Let me find it. Where is it? Oh, yeah. So Grosjean, after he was crashed out, said, we do all this for the weekend just to get crashed into. I think that's very, very ironic coming from Grosjean. All the all the drivers to criticise that. Sorry, I've been playing too much F1 2019. That's my issue. But yeah, what do you think, Louis? Do you think anyone was to blame there, or just an unfortunate racing incident?
No, it's just one of those, isn't it? It's just a racing incident, It's a tight one. We've seen incidents there before. Honestly, I'm glad that the steward sort of just went, yeah, it was a racing incident, because it for me it was.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really disagrees with that. It's just unfortunate, really. But a really big shame for Grosjean, though, because Haas, they obviously did score points with Magnussen. But Grosjean, a hell of an effort in qualifying, wasn't it, Mikael?
Yeah, that was shocking. Yeah, I was watching the Finnish broadcast from that, and they were betting on, like, if someone would be like a dark horse in the race, technically would be like Magnussen making it to Q3, and then when Grosjean pulled off, like, I think it was P6 in Q2 or something like that, 6 or 7. That was very impressive considering Magnussen got left in Q2. So he did well for once in qualifying as well. And yeah, I mean, definitely wasn't Grosjean's fault, the crash. So for once, it's sad and unfortunate that he got the bad end of it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have an episode last week, as we've been over. And one of the things that got announced last week was that Grosjean is staying at Haas for next year. And a lot of people were tipping Nico Hülkenberg to move there from Renault, because obviously Ocon is going to Renault for next year. What do you make of the decision for Haas to retain Grosjean, Ruby? It's definitely an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, I thought Grosjean was definitely going at the end of this season. You know, for the last 2 seasons, he didn't really score points for about the first half of the season on both occasions, and some of those occasions was because he decided to crash himself. But yeah, I know that Hülkenberg and Magnussen have got a lot of friction between them, but I also saw that Haas wouldn't have had any issue fielding them two together.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been very interesting to see Magnussen and Hülkenberg as teammates, but I think given their history, it wouldn't have really happened, would it? And I think also because Grosjean, he brings sponsorship to the team, and also he was asking for a lot less money apparently too. So I think that is why. Obviously, it's just speculation, but that's what the inside source has been touting. Anyway, people who claim to be inside sources anyway, probably not. Let's be honest, Dave. You can claim when you want to be on Twitter. But yeah, so Lance Stroll, 11th place in the Racing Point, just missing out on points, unfortunately for him. As we mentioned earlier on, all the Honda-powered cars took penalties. It was Kvyat in his home race, 12th. Gasly, 14th for Toro Rosso. And if it is a battle between... Helmut Marko has ruled out Kvyat for Red Bull. He will remain at Toro Rosso next year. If it is a battle between Gasly and Albon for that second Red Bull seat, Albon has got a huge upper hand now, hasn't he, Louis?
Yeah, I was saying earlier, that drive that he put in today shows what Gasly was lacking in that Red Bull. And even though Gasly did have a good, great race out in Singapore, I think he was again lacking in this race. To finish behind for him, his minimum sort of target for every weekend is to make sure that he's convincingly beating Kvyat, so that he's even considered. But finishing behind is never a good thing, especially trying to get back in that top team.
No, definitely not. So yeah, Albon, very, very good chance of staying in that Red Bull for 2020 as it stands. Now, 13th and very unlucky, Kimi Raikkonen. Now, I remember after Italy, Dev said that him and Seb were driving around like amateurs despite being world champions. I thought it was a little harsh, but I could see what he means. And I think Kimi was very amateurish in this race. A jump start. Very rare we see that, especially one that bad, Mikael.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I actually had to look at it again to just see how long. It seems like the jump started like 2 seconds prior to like he had time to stop the car again and then still do a competitive enough start to actually follow the Williamses down the straight. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't a good weekend for Alfa in any case. Yeah, I mean, really just nothing to show, I guess. I mean, I feel like the entire team, Kimi included, has kind of been a downward spiral after August. So yeah, we'll see if they're able to pick it up in Suzuka, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a bad one for Kimi. 13th for him. Giovinazzi 15th. Giovinazzi, though, has been doing well recently, to be fair. Let's have a look. Where did he finish? He finished 10th in Singapore. He finished 9th in Italy. He should have got points in Belgium, obviously. But yeah, no, not a great run of point. I mean, it's Alfa. It's not the best car at the end of the day. But I did think it was pretty laughable by Kimi. I honestly kind of expected after seeing that he jumped the start that much, you'd think, oh, he just got fuck it and just steer off and just go straight ahead, knowing him. But no, he stopped and then lost all his places into the first corner. It was a disastrous start for him. Ended up with a drive-through penalty. So really not good weekend for him. And that runs up all the finishers, non-finishers. Now, weirdly, both Williams didn't finish because of the same issue as well. Brakes. And pretty much the same lap as well, I think. Oh, no. Wait, it says Kubica withdrew. What actually happened there? Because I didn't actually see him retire. Do you know what happened, Ruby?
I don't know what happened to Kubica. Just about 2 laps after Russell maybe stopped, Kubica was pulled into the garage to retire.
Yeah, either you two know, Louis, Mikael, what happened? Because it's a bit of a shroud of mystery, this, isn't it, really?
I can only speculate that it was that because Russell had his brakes issue, they were going to pull Kubica just to see if he had the same issue, or they were detecting something on his car that looked worrying. That's the only thing I can really speculate. I don't actually know.
Yeah, because when I was doing my extensive research for this podcast earlier this morning, it did say that it was brakes. It was brakes issue for Kubica, but it's now changed to withdrew. So I'm really not sure what that one is. But Kubica, of course, was running at the back of the field. However, Russell, though, he was fair play to him. He was doing really well. He was ahead of the Alfa Romeos at the time, I believe. Another really good race until, unfortunately, his mechanical issue, Mikael.
Yeah, I mean, just before the safety car came on the first or second lap, I mean, he was holding the fastest lap, so surprise there. No, I mean, Russell has been doing well, but it's difficult. He doesn't have a comparison, right? Like Kubica, as you know, as legendary as his comeback is and everything, like he's not a straight comparison with Russell. It's difficult to make claims, for example, on whether Russell is worthy of Hamilton's seat at Mercedes, for example, if he retires in a few years, for example. Like you can't really say much about his season other than, I mean, good job keeping other cars than Williams behind you, I guess.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to gauge, isn't it? There you go. So it wasn't the most eventful race, as we know. It's Sochi. People were not very complimentary about it. But now, the driver of the day, the official driver of the day, was Sebastian Vettel. I'm gonna disagree with that one slightly. He did very well, I thought, but it's kind of hard to tell because he didn't see out the race. So I'm gonna give my personal driver of the day to Hamilton, just because he kept with the Ferraris, did an amazing job in qualifying, and obviously saw it through to win the race. Ruby, who's your pick of driver of the day for Russia?
I was thinking a reason as to why Vettel might have been driver of the day from a Mercedes fan's perspective. He did help them out a lot. But again, you know, just like you said, Lewis keeping pace with the Mercedes on the harder tyre, you know, was a valiant effort. But agreeing with Louis, Albon did a very good job too.
Yeah, would you say
Just
that
between them two?
Oh, sorry. Would you say that Albon was your choice then, Louis? I think you said it earlier on.
Yeah, I did say it earlier. Albon, a brilliant recovery drive.
All right, Mikael, you going with Kimi then or someone else?
I probably have to go with Hamilton, to be fair, just being able to keep up with the Ferraris. I don't know. I kind of did want to say Leclerc, but then I'm like, I don't have any reason to say. I feel like him complaining in the team radio now in Singapore and here, no matter how justified it is, I think he's kind of damaging this like Ferrari's future boy image that he has already. It's like, I don't want to hear him screaming or like debating in the radio more like every race why he should win it. I mean, I saw a good meme on the fact that other drivers are just shouting and then he's holding a PowerPoint presentation on how he should actually win the race in the team radio. So I mean, yeah, no, Hamilton driver of the day. I'm just worried for Leclerc's image at this point.
Hamilton for the race and Leclerc for his presentation of his inspection. The most prepared driver for every scenario. But yeah, so Leclerc potentially damaged his future image. But talking about the future, going back to the past for the future, if you know where I'm coming from, Mercedes engines back in the McLaren for 2021. I did not expect to see that announcement. McLaren going back on their Renault deal really fast, Ruby.
Yeah, it's a bit of a odd one, really, because obviously when McLaren left Mercedes, the whole message they were giving was, we're never going to win being a customer team. We need to be a like her sole manufacturer. And then obviously they just got fed up of Honda, probably reasonably so until this season. And then Renault, got them jumping forward, but still showed that all of their talk about having a great chassis was not entirely true. But going back to Mercedes, it has been the most reliable power unit. It's been the fastest up until probably this season and maybe parts of last season. But yeah, it's just sort of a no-brainer really in terms of performance.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And it is one of the components that they're going to need to propel themselves up into that top 3 battle and make it a top 4 battle effectively, Louis.
Yeah. I mean, the deal doesn't come until 2021, so clearly McLaren are happy enough with what Renault's providing next year, but even more happy with what Mercedes are planning for 2021. But yeah, it's like we're meant to see Renault be the team that bridged that gap this season. That has failed horrendously. McLaren have shown that they're the better car with that Renault engine. So they needed that sort of last piece of the puzzle, I think. Just a reliable engine. They've got the drivers. I think they're making great strides with their chassis. So I think it's just the last thing they need.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And now turning slightly away from Formula 1, 2 things I want to talk about from F2 actually. First of all, Nick De Vries. It seems like he's been in junior Formula E for absolute ages, but he has won the Formula 2 championship this year in Sochi. Now, I don't know whether he's going to get a seat next year in F1, but look out for him, obviously. And also, Juan Manuel Correa. Good news with him. I was very worried about this guy, but some really good news this week. He's been transferred to a new hospital in London. This is via a statement on his website, by the way. And let's have a look what he's done. He's fully conscious and his lungs have recovered much faster than anticipated. His overall physical improvement and willpower has doctors impressed. The main objective this week is to get Juan Manuel in the best condition possible for his surgery on Sunday. That will be over 10 hours long. But it's brilliant news to hear that he's conscious, and we do wish him all the best. Everybody at F1 Chronicle wishes him all the best in his recovery. He's got a long road ahead of him, but with that kind of determination that's got him to F2, he'll do it. I've got every faith he'll do it. He'll be fine. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Really do appreciate it. If you are, I don't know what service you're listening to this on, but obviously we've expanded the amount of things that we're on. We are on a lot. We're on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel. I think it's the F1 Chronicle, the actual YouTube channel. We're on Spotify, so you can download the podcast there. We're on Google Podcasts, you can download it there. We're on Apple, download it there. We're on a lot of things. We've even got our own I think we've got our own Reddit as well. So do search for the Grid Talk Reddit. If you have any suggestions, a lot of the suggestions that were put through from somebody we're put into this episode as well. We really do appreciate that. If you have any more suggestions for us, obviously, if you think I talk too much or whatever, then that's fine. Just say it. Let us know. Any feedback is good feedback. And also we're on Omni Studio and Pocket Cast as well. So there's no excuse for missing us now. We're everywhere. But yes, thank you to Ruby. Thank you to Louis. Thank you to Mikael. Thank you all for joining us. And we'll be back this time next week to preview the Japanese Grand Prix. Could it be Ferrari back to winning race? Will it be Mercedes? Or who knows? Maybe a Red Bull. Maybe a Red Bull could win a race again. It's been a while since that happened, hasn't it? Join us then. Thank you very much. Keep it tuned to the F1 Chronicle. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.